Hey folks, it's Andy. Welcome to Kendo RANT. Let's get the party started. Right. Does Kakarigeiko, where the sensei and the motodachi are, the sensei or the motodachi are cruel and brutal and never ending to the attackers and sometimes are on the borderline abuse, actually help your kendo? I see this type of Kakarigeiko in team practice most often. Does it actually help your kendo? Is it just abuse? Please understand, I've gone through my share of Kakarigeiko. I think it does help in certain aspects, but would like your opinion and thoughts. Okay, so what the question is saying is, when you do Kakarigeiko and the sensei or the motodachi is particularly unforgiving, shall we say, does that actually benefit your kendo, or is it just the motodachi being abusive or kind of just doing it for the sake of it? Well, yeah, it does benefit your kendo. It absolutely does. And for the most part, it's not because the motodachi or the sensei is being abusive or being violent or particularly overly aggressive. It is very good for your kendo in lots of ways. It's very good for building your spirit and for developing sutemi, as well as lots of other things as well. But it really, really is it's a big part of developing, especially for teams, like you say. And yeah, I mean, I know it's very difficult, especially sort of for adults to be put through that. It's quite common in Japan for kids to be put through that quite a lot. Youngsters maybe up to sort of high school age, possibly university, but not so much with adults. Though I've experienced it too, and yeah, I've definitely benefited from it, definitely without a doubt. So yeah, as horrible as it is, as unpleasant as it is to experience, there definitely is a lot to gain from it. And whether the teacher is being, I don't believe that, like I say, for the most part, I don't believe that the teacher is being abusive or being overly aggressive or anything like that. But even in the case that they are, which I've never seen a teacher that's been doing it just for the sake of being abusive. I'm not saying that they don't exist. Perhaps they do. But even in the case when it is that, it doesn't mean that you still can't gain from that situation. Not saying that that justifies it, but like I say, I think that's a rarity anyway. Next one. Hi, Andy. I'm interested in buying a men pad. I actually already have one, but it was too thick and it didn't fit the men. Could you show one in Kendo RANT so I can see its exact thickness, please? Yeah, no problem. Right. We've got two types, actually. The one that's on our website is this one. I think you can see it. It's not so thick. It's like around a centimetre thick maximum. Just like that. Okay, so this part slots into the top of the uchiwa, between the uchiwa and the futon, like that. It goes in the top, goes on top of your head like that. We have another one as well that's a lot thicker. That's the other type that we have. It's quite a lot thicker, as you see. Like this. This is about 2 or 3 centimetres thick, actually. So this one offers a lot more protection. This one's not up on the website yet. We only just got these in. If you want one, though, let us know. This is the most common one. This one takes up quite a lot of space in the men. It is quite, you know, it is really protective. But most KendoStar Borg, well, frankly, KendoStar Borgu, all of it doesn't really need that much extra protection. You'd only really need this if you already had a men that didn't fit you at all and needed a lot of space taken up. But generally, this one is by far enough, even for that purpose as well. So, yeah. They're the two types. Okay, that's the one that you can see on the website. And if you want one like that, then just hit me up. Okay, next. Okay, this isn't a question. This is a comment from the last video. Okay, so someone very, very kindly went through and put timestamps on the last video, and it was in response to the question about somebody who has a Japanese sensei visit, and I've got a bit more context to it now. Basically, Japanese sensei come and visit and tour the country, but it costs the dojo to get them to come and visit their dojo whilst they're touring. I guess you have to kind of pay out for the expenses and stuff of getting them over. It's a very big country that they're talking about. So I understand now. That makes more sense. But the comment on that, it says that my personal comment is I thought that Kendoka took pride in not doing Kendo for money. So I just wanted to address that because I saw it and I thought, well, really? Because I'm not sure that they do, and I'm not sure that they should either. I think this concept of Kendoka kind of not not doing kendo for money or not receiving money, any sort of monetary compensation it's a really Western thing. I really see it most sort of in the West more than anywhere. I particularly see it a lot in Europe. Most top level Japanese kendoka do receive monetary compensation for kendo. They're either police officers and they're actually paid a salary for practicing kendo, or they're teachers, like school teachers, and again they're paid a salary for teaching kendo. Most teachers in Japan as well, if they go and teach at a seminar or they sit on a grading panel or they referee at a tournament, they do actually receive a financial compensation for that. It's quite normal actually for even, like just doing the normal refereeing at a local level to Shia, that you would receive some kind of monetary compensation. Often it's very small. It's not the sort of stuff you would live off. I mean, it's stuff that just cover your expenses really, but it's quite normal. It's quite the done thing, and I don't think I've never, there's not. Having said that, there's not like it's not like a sports club or like a gym where there's not many dojos where this isn't to say that they don't exist though, in Japan, where you have a dojo and the membership fees go to pay a sensei's salary. I'm not saying that doesn't necessarily exist, and it certainly does in certain areas of the world. I know that as well, and I have actually heard of cases of it in Japan too. It's just not that common. But yeah, the kind of concept of not doing kendo for money or not receiving any sort of, I don't think any of them do kendo for money, but I do think that many of them most of them do kendo just because they're brought up doing kendo. It's just what they do, rather than they do it for money. But I mean, I guess you could say that about a lot of professions as well, really. I don't do kendo for money, but it'd be wrong for me to say that I don't like financially benefit from it. KendoStar is not a hobby for me, for example. KendoStar is how I pay my bills and I feed my family. So yeah, I mean, I actually have a sort of financial benefit from kendo in a way. Of course, I'm doing so by providing a product rather than any sort of instruction necessarily. I generally put out sort of instructional stuff for free, but still, yeah, the kind of this notion of not taking pride in not doing kendo for money, again, it only generally exists in my experience, sort of outside of the sort of, well, certainly in the West, really, I'd say. And I'm not sure I totally agree with it, to be honest. Anyway, next one. Okay, this is quite a long question. Okay, but I'm going to talk about it because last weekend was the University Taikai in the UK. So basically in the UK, it was the Taikai for all of the university clubs in the country, and I was there as a referee. And this is a question from someone who was obviously there and has some questions about what happened, and I think they would be useful for people watching this as well. So I'd really be interested on your opinions on how people were acting at the UK University Taikai. How do you deal with the situation of someone having bad reiho, but they're not part of your dojo, you don't know them, and they are a higher grade? Because I saw many people walking over equipment and not even trying to avoid it, kicking it over accidentally and not putting it back the way it was before. I know the situation was difficult, but it was possible to go through the entire weekend without walking over anyone's equipment. But I came back to my equipment a couple of times, and every time that it had been shifted and the mengane was directly on the floor. Because it's quite shocking that your kids were far better behaved than a majority of the university students there. Also, what are you supposed to do when the match has finished, brackets finals, and the person you're fighting leaves the shiaijo before they do shomen nidei? Do you just stand there until they get told to go back? Is there a way of indicating to them that they shouldn't go exit the shiaijo before they do? And could you possibly give a quick rundown of the speech that was given after the Kyusha competition, as there are a couple of university clubs that couldn't make it, and I think it's something that can benefit many people. Okay, so quite a lot there to unpack, so let's get started at the top. What were my opinions of how people were acting at the University Taikai? Depends on what context we're talking about. In terms of spectators, I think it's really good that teams cheer on their teams. All right, I'm not someone that's super strict on like, oh, you must do a golf clap when you're watching kendo, because obviously emotions are running high. If you go to any sort of big Japanese shiai that's like not the All Japan Championships, but like especially high school or university tournaments in Japan, it's just this, people do get very emotive with their cheering, but it was becoming a little bit over the top last weekend. I would say there was a couple of things that shouldn't have happened. Stuff like chanting. You shouldn't be chanting, right? It's all right to kind of clap and yay, a little bit of yay, but it was getting louder and louder and louder. And even myself at one point, I had to stop and sort of ask some of the crowd members that were near to me to just be a bit quieter, because I was having trouble hearing the quality of the ippon, the strikes in the shiai. As you're refereeing, of course, you're not just looking, but you also are listening. You have to listen for the competitor's voice. You have to listen for the impact of the strike. And things like this, and I was becoming unable to do this, and it's actually detrimental to your own player, because the referee could miss their points because they can't hear over your shouting. So that's one thing that I did feel about the bad Neiho. If they're not part of your dojo, you don't know them in a higher grade, the only thing you can do is just ignore it. The worst thing it's not the worst thing, but you don't want to start going up to them saying, hey mate, you're doing this wrong. It's not going to end well, all right? All you can do is hope that at some point in the future, they will be corrected on the errors of their ways. All right, just you focus on doing you properly, doing your thing correctly, but don't start going around telling other people, especially the higher grades to you, that they're doing it wrong, because you're going to just put someone's nose out of joint and you're going to make yourself unpopular. It's not going to help you. Hopefully they'll be watching this and maybe they'll kind of realise that they shouldn't have done that. About my kids being better behaved, I had to take my kids with me, and they were well behaved. They know not to sort of step over shinai and stuff like that, and they know that if they don't, they can both myself and my wife are somewhat strict on those areas. So yeah, they've been brought up with it. They've been brought up with it. Whereas you have to remember, some people in other clubs, they might not have been taught it. I don't think many people are doing it out of necessarily, certainly not out of malicious intent, but I think many people aren't even doing it because they're lazy. They just don't know any better because they haven't been taught that way. But you don't want to make it your place to teach them. The best thing to do is keep working on your kendo, get yourself to where you're the higher grade, and then you can tell the people that are lower grade than you, and then you're not gonna end up in a difficult situation. And in terms of when the match is finished and the person you're fighting leaves a shiaijo before they do shomen nidei, no, you don't need to indicate to them. You don't need to take any regard for them. If you know you've got to do shomen nidei, then you just wait at the edge of the shiaijo, inside the shiaijo, of course, because you will turn from inside the shiaijo towards shomen before day, and you just wait. The referees will notice, but if even if the referees don't notice, they should. If they don't notice and the referee, the Shushin says shomen ni, then forget your opponent, turn towards shomen. When they say day, you do day. Just your opponent's not your problem, okay? So don't worry about that. And in terms of the speech that was given after the Kyusha competition, okay, I'll try and give a little brief idea about it, but it was a little bit all over the place, to be honest. But there was a couple of points made. One is that lots of people were just attacking mindlessly and kind of overly aggressively. So they were kind of standing up at Sonkyo, and then just smashing together. And people were just smashing together, just totally mindlessly. It's kind of normal with Q grades. But yeah, there was no kind of thought about what they were doing or why they were attacking or anything like that. Again, you kind of expect it at that level, really. But I think a lot of people are going to find themselves breaking a lot of shinai the way that they were kind of just bashing together. What the point I was trying to make, which was about actually entering and exiting the shiaijo. I think that there was a lack of understanding of how to correctly enter and exit the shiaijo, how to correctly conduct themselves, actually doing that, how to walk sort of the 3 steps to the line, perform sonkyo, how to properly do taito, osameto, those sort of basic things. And the thing I wanted to talk about but I didn't get time to was also chakuso, which is how you wear the bogu. So many people were a total mess. The himo were all over the place, different lengths. They weren't 40 centimeter lengths. They weren't nice and neatly together. People were wearing the bogu wrong. And that was an absolute mess as well. And that was a point I really wanted to make to the dojo leaders. So if you are a dojo leader, especially at a university club, but even not at a university club, if you're going to have your members enter a shiai, make sure that they know how to enter and exit the shiaijo properly. Also that they understand how to conduct themselves for instances like gogi, when the referees call a conference, that they don't do sonkyo at that point. They, from the standing chudan position, they go straight to osameto, and then they take the fight, they sort of withdraw from the line, and they wait in sonkyo while the referees convene. Once that's finished, they stand up, 3 steps back to the line, draw, and stand in chudan. That sort of thing. How to do wakare and the difference between wakare and yame. This is the sort of stuff they have to know before you're throwing them into a shiai. All right. If they're like 2 months into wearing bogu and you're like, oh, he's wearing bogu, yeah, just chuck him in the shiai. If you're going to do that, at least make sure they know how a shiai works. Because you're not only embarrassing them, you're embarrassing your club. Make sure they know how to wear their bogu properly, that how to tie their armor properly, and that they're not going, sort of in there looking like a mess. And finally, make sure that they've got, if they haven't got a zekken or a tarenem or a, what's the proper word, nafuda, if they haven't got a zekken yet, then put a piece of tape on with a marker on or something, or write it in chalk. They've got to have the name written on the bogu, because it's really hard as a referee to make sure that we've got the right players on the court. It's part of the rules. Having your name written on your bogu is part of the rules. It actually says you're supposed to have it. So if you don't have it, you're actually breaking the rules there already. We were quite lenient on that at the University Taikai, but I'd like to see more people take care over that sort of thing. Next question. What is your opinion on sports chambara? My opinion on sports chambara, it's kind of similar to my opinion on snooker or darts. I know it exists. I know very little about it, and I've got very little desire to learn anymore. I've never really been interested in it. I've had a go at it once, actually, at my kids' school when we lived in Japan. They had a parent and kid activity, which was like a sports chambara thing. It was just messing around with foam swords, really. I don't think we were doing real sports chambara. But yeah, it's totally different to Kendo. It's not related to Kendo at all. I do know people that have crossed over from sports chambara into Kendo, and probably it's happened the other way around. I'm sure there's similarities, but I know very little about it otherwise. Hi everybody, I just wanted to ask a question on kote kuts. When receiving them, I tend to find them incredibly painful. I'm currently using Sakura kote, brackets, not a KendoStar product. So I'm not sure if it's the level of protection offered by the kote or something I'm doing. I was once told it must be because my hand was rolled over too much, so the nerves were getting hit. I've tried a kote pad, but it's too restrictive under the kote. Has anyone else had this issue, or did you find it was the kote and changed them, and now you don't have the issue? Okay, so this is a post from the Kendo Show Early Access group. If you're not in the group, there's a link in the description. Get in the group. It's free to join, of course. It's a great place to post your questions. Okay, so the kote that you mentioned, yeah, I know them very well. They're not a KendoStar product, but I do know which they are. I'm not going to tell you where they're from, but I don't do that sort of thing. But I do know what they are. They're a 3mm set of kote. So 3mm is very much on the finer side of the stitching, which means that the futon is very, very thin. So you are going to get less protection out of something like that than you would out of, say, something that was 6mm, or even something that's like 10mm, like the V1 or the Vanguard sets that we offer. It's not even a popular stitch width in Japan anymore because of that. Yeah, so I mean, that's one thing. That's definitely one thing that you know, you're not going to get the protection out of 3mm as you would out of something else. But also, if you're finding that a kote pad is hard to fit between the kote and your wrist, try loosening the himo on the kote so that you can fit it in. A kote pad that comes up to your wrist, like up to here, should fit beneath your kote without a problem. If it doesn't, then probably your himo are too tight. So bear that in mind too. And otherwise, I don't recommend kind of like moving your arm around when you receive kote. You're going to learn sort of weird habits doing that. It's not good for your kendo to do that. Your kote should be protecting you properly. Of course, the only other thing that could be causing the pain is like somebody hitting it really hard, maybe the other person hitting it harder than they should do. Obviously, that's a pretty likely scenario, actually. I mean, I don't know what dojo you're at or where you're practicing. I haven't written any of that down. So that's not a statement on wherever you're practicing, because I literally don't know. But yeah, I mean, obviously that is a common problem in the West, where we have people that are, you know, starting kendo later in life and they're still sort of hitting with power rather than with tenuchi. So obviously that's very painful too. So yeah, if you can't get the pad in between, loosen up the himo. If that's not working, then yeah, speak to your teacher. That might work, about sort of pain that you're having. They might be able to talk to the other students. And failing that, yeah, I mean, like I say, 3mm kote aren't going to offer you the best protection, unfortunately. Last one. Now, this is a great one. I love a good controversial subject. Hi, Andy. I have a question about Zanshin. I know that you've covered this topic before in a video, but I've wanted to ask about moving through past your opponent after you strike. You said that moving through past your opponent with your back turned is bad, as you're exposing a weak point and may receive a strike upon turning around. However, I received some advice recently from a senpai telling me that I should go through completely when cutting, as this is displayed proper Zanshin as long as I moved far enough away from my opponent to be out of danger. Do you think that always keeping your eyes fixed on your opponent and thus not going through fully is a more advanced concept, or would you say that it's basic that I should try and keep in mind? For reference, I'm Kyusha and my senpai who gave me the advice is Shodan. Thank you very much. Okay, so right at the start of every the Kendo Show video, I generally kind of try to put out there that you should always take the advice of your teachers over mine, because they know you and your Kendo better, all right? So you need to follow what your teachers are teaching. However, if you're asking my opinion on the subject, it is, right, I've commented on this post as well, because this is from the Kendo Show Early Access group as well. I have commented on that, and I've written, if someone can sort of provide a good argument as to why showing your back to your opponent is good or correct Zanshin, I'm still yet to hear it. It just isn't, right? The idea of hitting, going forward, going past your opponent, and then going off into the distance, into the distance like this with your back completely to your opponent is not Zanshin. It just isn't Zanshin. All right, we do practice like that. We practice Kihon like that so that we can learn to cut correctly, straight, with momentum, with sutemi to some extent, and most importantly, so that we can learn to have smooth and fluid ashisabaki. Okay, it's for footwork. It's a drill, right? That's how we do it for practice. In the realistic situation, you have to cut with Zanshin. You have to have Zanshin. Zanshin means remaining spirit, and it means that you're in a sort of state after your cut, particularly, where you're still mentally aware, focused on your opponent, and you're able to deal with the consequences of what might happen next. You can't do that with your back entirely to your opponent, right? In my opinion, if you turn your back to your opponent after striking, it's bad Zanshin. That's just how it is. A very important sensei, very famous sensei, I'm not going to name drop in the video, but it's a sensei that I'm pretty sure most of you will know, is an 8th Dan. Taught me about Zanshin, and I follow their teaching, and that is that you don't take your eyes off your opponent, or if you do so for as minimal amount of time as possible. The idea of getting out of danger, sort of running past into the distance to get out of danger, that isn't Zanshin. That isn't Zanshin. Separating, putting distance between you and your opponent, definitely. All right, so what you do, you strike, man, they're not going to step out of the way for you like they do in Kihon, right? They're not going to move out of the way. They're going to try and stop you because they don't want to lose the point, or they don't want to accept that they've been hit for the most part, all right? So they're not going to step out of the way for you. That isn't what you do in the tachiai. So the idea is you hit, and obviously they're not going to move, all right? So you're going to go forward with full momentum, and if they don't move out of the way, which they probably won't, you're going to kind of bump into them a bit. Your hands are going to be forward, not over your head, all right? Your hands are going to be forward. Man, you're going to bump into them a little bit, and then you're going to separate from them, all right? Either you can go sort of off to the side and backwards. If you can go past them, that's fine. You can go straight past them, but as soon as you pass them, man, you go past them and immediately you turn, and then you continue separating by going backwards. Yeah, so you use your footwork dynamically in order to put distance between yourself and them, whilst keeping your eyes and your sword towards them, and kind of your spirit towards them. Okay, this is the kigamae. Okay, migamae with the body and kigamae with the spirit. That is part of Zanshin, and that has to be towards the opponent at all times. Hitting man into the distance. It's not Zanshin. It just isn't. Just like if you hit kote like this and then turn your backs and run with your back towards your opponent after hitting kote, that's not Zanshin. Yeah, hitting hikido and then turning your back and running that way. It's not Zanshin. Yeah, it's bad Zanshin. Well, it's not even bad Zanshin. It's not Zanshin. Yeah, it's just running away. Yeah, so don't get confused between basic practice and actual kind of realistic techniques. Yeah, in a real situation. Man, what's worse, what sometimes you see is like they hit man, they go forward, man, and then they turn off to the side and then they go straight off that way, like, or something like that. Weird. It can't be argued that that is Zanshin. It's literally turning your focus away from your opponent, and that isn't what you're supposed to do for Zanshin. Okay, so that's my opinion on that. I hope that sort of covered everything. Don't forget to do all the like, share, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff. You know what to do. And leave a comment down below what you'd like me to rant about next time. Don't forget to shop at KendoStar.com. That's the website that I run. I think I've already talked about that. Like I said, it does help me keep the lights on and feed my family. But not only that, it's fantastic equipment shipped all around the world. We've got free shipping on everything. We've got some awesome deals on right now, actually, for February. They're going to finish on Thursday. That's only a couple of days away. So get on to KendoStar.com. Check out what we've got on Borgus, Shinai, uniforms, all sorts of cool stuff. And yeah, I'll see you all next time. Thank you very much for watching.